Have you ever had a friend that was so intertwined with your life that you can't remember your first memory with them? For me, as silly as it can sound, that friend was Mario. I'm not exactly sure where in my life I first played a Mario game, but I know he has always been there for me. Together we went on the most amazing adventures, from scaling a mountain amongst the battlefield to having nothing to do with how this penguin slipped off the edge, even diving near a sunken ship, only to... Oh my god! What is that? The best part about these adventures with Mario is that they never seem to stop. Watching our paper-crafted story unfold, playing a few rounds of tennis, and even having an all-out party were some of the best memories I have. I even remember the drive home after my dad graciously purchased Super Mario Sunshine for me, and I was struggling to read the box art between the light of the street lamps. I was incredibly excited to go on another adventure. Starting up the game and being swept away to the tropical destination of Isle Delfino was unforgettable, and it had become one of my favorite Mario games. From the various secrets to being able to visit the same levels and interact with the locals, that game would bring me immense joy, and, in a weird way, I can say that Mario was my best friend. I had a lonely childhood, filled with tumultuous events. My parents moved around a ton, so there was always a constant change of scenery, locations, and people who were in my life. But Mario was a constant for me, and he made me feel like no matter what crazy problems I'd be going through, we would always have time to have a grand adventure together. We were a team, and I thought I wasn't alone. It felt like Mario saved me from something that I truly didn't understand yet. I was young and naive, and the loneliness of my childhood escaped me. That was until I played Super Mario Galaxy. Starting the game, I was excited to dive into another adventure with my best friend. As Bowser abducts Peach's castle and runs into the stars, we end up stranded amongst a vast sea of space, where we were only a speck amongst it all. It was here where Super Mario Galaxy gave me an existential dread that caused me to realize how huge the universe was and how small and insignificant I was. Above all else, Super Mario Galaxy showed me that I was alone. For the first time, it felt like Mario and I weren't an inseparable pair, but two celestial bodies who happened to orbit around each other once in a while. When our latest adventure had finished, I couldn't help but think that our friendship had irreparably changed. As the years went on, Mario was off living his own life, and I was stuck with mine. I started to dwell not on the times we were together, but the times we were apart. And I realized that although Mario had been my best friend, I would never be his. When game releases continued, but money became tighter, I wouldn't be joining Mario in all of his adventures, and I felt that we were becoming different people. I had felt that I had lost my best friend, and the pain that I felt, the pain of feeling both different and estranged from someone you thought would be there with you forever, was something I thought I'd never experience. When we think of the term best friend, we think of all the adventures we'll have together when we grow older. We don't think that one day it'll all end, until it does. From time to time, I would revisit Mario on our old adventures. Sometimes I'd even catch him up on what was going on in my life, to which he'd fall asleep most of the time. One thing I had to tell Mario about was a new friend I had made in school. I wasn't a very popular kid. I was shy and introverted, so I didn't have many friends. But there was one extroverted friend that I regarded highly. Thinking back on it now, I don't remember my first memory of him either. But I knew that during my darkest times in high school, he became a beacon of light for me, especially since he would be the first of my friends to get his driver's license, and we would have grand adventures together. I remember many times we'd head out to eat at Soup Plantation, laughing and stuffing our faces with as much as we could to make our money's worth, or to IHOP on their unlimited pancake days to eat what we could. We'd also play a ton of games together, from Halo to Gary's Mod, and even finding our way to beat Super Mario 3D World together entirely in one day. In a way, he was my best friend. And in another weird way, he was my Mario, and I know I was not his. Between the grand adventures we would embark on together, there were adventures we would tackle on our own. And while he was off meeting new people and having his own journey, equipped with his own set of challenges, I was stuck in my household, battling my own demons. High school was one of the worst times in my life. Struggling with my depression, an eating disorder, and more made me feel like I was isolated from all my peers. It constantly reminded me that, above all else, I was alone, because I felt that all my struggles were unique to me, and no one would understand. I never wanted to be a burden on anyone, so I never reached out to any of my friends about it, not to my extroverted best friend, and not even to Mario. Even though I probably should have. It might have changed everything. When graduation arrived, I was content with withering away from all my relationships and finding a rest from the world. But that rest didn't come, and my life continued. Alone. At this moment, both Marios were gone from my life, as I never played a Mario game again, and I never reached out to my extroverted friend. So when I started meeting new people in college, it felt like I was starting fresh. It was when I met the most amazing girl that my life changed forever. Before we married, she had told me something that shocked me. She had told me that I was her best friend. Hearing it said out loud was foreign to my ears and stirred a panic within me. What does it mean to be a best friend? Surely I, who regarded both Marios as my best friends, should know something about being a best friend. But when I thought about how to act now that I've been labeled, I would only draw a blank. What about Mario and my extroverted friend made them my best friend? In my panic, I rushed to the one reputable source on being a best friend: WikiHow. Looking at the steps to be a best friend felt daunting. There is so much more to being a best friend than just being there, many of which I never particularly felt from my best friends of the past, including Mario, which made me question, have I never truly had a best friend before? Throughout my life, I was carrying the trauma and loneliness of my youth, the one that had made me fiercely independent. So the idea of all these requirements one has to do to be a best friend felt like too many to burden a person with. And I never wanted to go through life concerned with what people did for me in order for me to care about them. A relationship should never be quid pro quo. With this in mind, I would see both Mario and my extroverted friend as a particular type of best friend, the one someone has when they are younger. But the thing about best friends is that they change, not only because you find new people in your life, but because you and your best friends grow to become different people entirely. Despite that, I cared so much for all of my best friends throughout my life, but I wish I had told them just how much they meant to me, especially when my old extroverted best friend reached out to me, and we reconnected. It had been years since I had properly spoken to him, only reaching out here and there. But whenever he was in town from his grand adventures, I made it my mission to greet him again, even when he let me know that he was in the hospital. I have lost so many important people in my life, many of them too soon. Life can be a terrifying struggle at times, though when times get tough, I know one person I can always call: Mario. Equipped with a brand new Nintendo Switch, I visited my best friend in the hospital and showcased how cool it was to play Mario Kart on the go. I understand that he was going through a lot with his diagnosis and his stay in the hospital, but I had no idea how much that moment meant to him, because I was deathly afraid of being there, in another smothering hospital room, with another person I cared deeply for. Luckily, he got better and was discharged. After we both went off on our own adventures, we stayed in touch more often. We had two vastly different lives, and I was glad I could be there for him in that moment and for moments after. I was also incredibly humbled and touched when he gifted me Super Mario Odyssey. I felt that my relationship with both Mario and my extroverted best friend were rekindled. And I was excited for the opportunity to go on adventures with both of them again. Diving into Super Mario Odyssey was a blast. I loved visiting the numerous worlds, and when they said it was more in line with Super Mario Sunshine's level design rather than Galaxy's, I was so excited. I love being able to go back to worlds and feel like I'm a part of the community, rather than jumping quickly from planet to planet. And playing Super Mario Odyssey made me feel that I wasn't alone. I was with my best friends. I was going on grand adventures again with Mario, and we were having a blast. I would even catch him up on everything that's happened in my life and my struggles with college at UCLA, to which he would fall asleep again. Mario helped me through really tough times, and the other Mario finally became a pillar in my life. We would game and talk for hours, especially once COVID had hit, and I felt like I had my old best friends back in my life permanently. It was amazing, and although we didn't live close to each other, we made it a point to connect regularly online and have grand adventures together, playing all sorts of games. It was last year where my extroverted best friend and I, along with others, were going on a grand adventure to Japan. It was essentially his bachelor party, for he was going to be married later that year, and his best man happened to be not me, obviously. Though I felt extremely close to him, I knew he had others he regarded highly, and a life beyond just our friendship. Regardless, I was extremely excited for this trip, to celebrate with my best friend, and to see Japan for the first time, the birthplace of Mario. Unfortunately, the trip proved to be one of the most challenging times in my life. From misaligned plans to mismatched expectations, my best friend and I were two completely different people from what we once were, and I had not realized just how different we were. I can vividly remember the moments of emotional pain I felt when I was treated horribly from the person I regarded as my best friend. From turning around to see the entire group abandon me, to the disrespect and embarrassment I felt when he yelled in frustration about my dietary restrictions in front of the whole group. It had been a decade since my struggles with depression started, and I believe I'm doing so much better mentally since those days. But the way I was treated in that trip was one of the worst moments in my life. It still hurts to think about that time, how distant and contemptuous he felt when I would talk to him, how the person I regarded as my best friend was unrecognizable from the version of him I once knew, and above all else, how it made me feel alone. More alone than I had in a really long time. Even seeing a Nintendo store filled to the brim with Mario merch provided no satisfaction. Something had broken about our friendship. But it wasn't my right to complain. I never wanted to be a burden, and this trip wasn't about me. So I allowed myself to be treated in a way I would never treat anyone else, and didn't want to bring any attention to it. Leaving Japan, I pushed it all under the bridge. I hope to move past it all and continue our friendship. Number 10 on the WikiHow list says, let go of any past mistakes your friend has made, and our friendship meant more to me than the scuffle. Besides, as my best friend, our lives were intertwined, and sometimes stressful trips to foreign countries can bring out bad sides in people. Soon after the trip, however, as we all returned to our respective homes, my best friend and I had a call. We discussed at length that the trip didn't go as planned for either of us. What he said, what broke my heart, was that he had been thinking for a while about what our friendship provides him. He felt that during the trip, I wasn't there enough for him. And perhaps I've never done enough for him in order to make this friendship worth putting time and effort into. This took me by surprise. I had no idea that he had felt this way, and when I attempted to express my feelings, he refused to hear how I felt. He had already made up his mind, and no amount of discussion could sway him. I felt my heart plunge into my stomach. It made me feel like I was broken, like I was incapable of making friends, or even being a friend. I felt like something was truly wrong with me, and that I didn't deserve any sort of friendship. We agreed to part ways, effectively ending over a decade of friendship. I wished him well and hoped he would find the types of friends that he values, because I had valued him tremendously. After we had said our goodbyes, I had hoped that he would have reached out in any way, but he never did, and I never did either. I was busy attempting to gain stability after such a prominent pillar in my life was toppled over. It's crazy to think that it has been over a year since we parted ways, and I have no idea how he's doing. I hope his wedding was wonderful, and that he's surrounded by people who love and support him, but I desperately wished he would have told me he was unhappy from our friendship earlier. I would have done things differently. I would have communicated with him better. I would have told him how lucky I was to have him as a best friend, and I would have used WikiHow better, even if my efforts would not have changed the outcome. I would have still tried. I have never imagined a life without Mario, and now, every moment with Mario reminds me of a best friend that I was hoping to have in my life forever. Oftentimes, we leave something behind when we grow out of childhood, but I never expected to leave my best friend. So when I'm sitting down, attempting to enjoy another adventure with Mario, I can't help but wonder, how do I mourn Mario when he's still alive? Whether he was truly my best friend, or someone who I had built up in my mind to be what I needed, I do miss him. However, when I think about it, one saying stands out in my mind. You can never meet a person twice, not even within the same person. You can only meet them once in your life, because as time moves on, they will fundamentally change from the person they once were. Hopefully for the better, but sometimes for the worse. The truth is, with all the fond memories I have of him, I'm missing a person that doesn't exist anymore. Mario isn't the same person I met many years ago. He's grown from his adventures, and I have with mine. So the idea of a best friend has changed for both of us. We ultimately are different from the people we once knew, and he had grown into someone who didn't value our friendship in the same way that I did. So I shouldn't harbor this pain, but it's hard not to. No one ever discusses the pain you feel from losing a best friend. I remember for weeks, after we parted ways, my breath felt shallow, my anxiety kicked in at random times, and every memory of him I combed through became tough to stomach. The pain was unbearable and weighed heavily on my heart. And losing a friend you held so dearly will always be devastating, especially since a friendship can end due to so many circumstances. Sometimes it'll end because of forces entirely out of your control, and sometimes it'll end because the person you were best friends with is no longer the same person anymore, and neither are you. I know that I can never bring back the feelings of when I played a Mario game for the first time, especially since I have no memory of when that first time was. But I know the next time I play a Mario game, it'll evoke a brand new wave of emotions and hopefully create lasting memories. This new experience won't be the same as any previous experience, for there's no recreating an experience in the same way, and there's no finding the same old best friend as before, because they have both long passed. I am left mourning an idea of a person that was kind to me, who was there for me at every moment when I needed him, and who I wanted to keep in my life forever. Unfortunately, that person does not exist, and all I am left with is these shattered pieces of a future I had dreamt of. But sometimes, galaxies must collapse to make way for new stars to be born, and brighter futures to emerge. I do not regret regarding Mario as my best friend. He changed my life in so many ways, and I will always remember the memories I had with him fondly. Even the rough ones, since they helped shape me into who I am today and reminded me to be kind and vocal about how much I care for the people in my life. But above all else, no matter how it may feel at times, I have to remind myself that I am truly not alone. The sky is filled with stars, all waiting to be seen. And even if your best friend leaves your orbit, they have changed the entire trajectory of your life and the way you interact with others. Sometimes in a better way than any WikiHow article can. So for now, as I wrap up all these chapters with Mario, the only thing left to do is move on, seeking out more grand adventures to distant worlds and galaxies. Mourning someone who is still alive often feels paradoxical. But grief is universal between all types of relationships and situations. And just like all mourning periods, eventually, with enough time, it'll end, and you will be able to move on. I'll keep everything I learned from my time with Mario, and I truly hope it's changed me for the better, because outgrowing Mario felt like a monumental task, one that invites all sorts of new possibilities and adventures. And although Mario took up a huge space in my life, there will always be new spaces for others like Luigi instead.